morning, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual Career Fair. I am Amy Stainhook from DMAC, and I'm joined by two professionals that are representing the construction career pathway this morning. So we have Andrew Braun and John Hand on the phone. So welcome, you guys. I would like to allow you, first of all, to just introduce yourself, the company that you work for, and give us a little idea on your background. So John, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm John Hand from Story Construction. I went to Iowa State University and got a degree in construction engineering. I've been at Story Construction ever since, for more than 17 years now. My first role was as a project engineer for several years, and I recently transitioned to superintendent a couple years ago. Did I get all the answers?
I think you did. How about you, Andrew?
Yep, so my name's Andy Braun. I am working at Henkel Construction. I've been at Henkel for almost 2 years now. I'm originally from Northwest Iowa. Went to school for Iowa State for a degree in finance, and actually didn't even use my major that much. I went into recruiting after college, and then I went into selling construction sales, and then that's what led me to partner with Henkel, and now I've been on their team for almost 2 years. So I handle a lot of their workforce development as well as some of the business development.
Great. Can you both give us just an overview of the companies that you work for? How many do they employ? Where are you located? What are the main things that they do on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. Story Construction, I would say, is about a mid-sized general contractor in commercial construction. We're located here in Ames. We do everything from churches to treatment plants. If you're from a school in Story County, I think the only school we haven't touched that I know of is Colonesco, and United is a little bit in Story County. But we've done work at all the rest of the schools in the county. I've done nursing homes, and right now I'm working for the state of Iowa Department of Administrative Services, working on mental health facilities and prisons mostly.
So Henkel Construction, we have 2 locations. We're headquartered out of Mason City, Iowa, and we've been up there since 1892. And then we have been in Ames now, I would say about 20 years on our design side and about 7 or 8 years on the construction side of it. We focus a lot on industrial healthcare work, as well as schools, bridges. Being around for so long, it's exposed us to a wide array of projects. So from an employee standpoint, we probably have about 130 employees, including office and field.
Wow. Great.
I skipped that answer. Story has a similar amount, about 150, give or take.
Big organizations, lots of people working for Story and Henkel Construction. This is probably a little bit longer answer, but what types of careers are in Story and Henkel Construction? And can you describe the varying education levels that maybe correspond with those careers?
Okay. So for just starting out, there's kind of 2 main paths. There's if you've got a college degree that you're going to use or not. The first job for that is normally project engineer or estimator. Project engineer assists the superintendent or the project manager working. You can have a desk on site or in the office or both. There's so many different things that go on with that. Estimating is you take the drawings created by the design team and help figure out how much it costs to build the project. From there, I moved from project engineer to superintendent. I could go on to project manager someday if I want to. The two top guys at Story started as project engineers several years ago, like 20 or 30 years ago. But and with any business, there's accounting and human resources and safety and all that. If you start right out of high school, you'd go to the field and be a laborer. That is mostly on the job training. I know there's programs out there like at Iowa Central Community College where you can learn how to be a carpenter and have some skills before you start working on the job site. So those are two different routes to go that way. Story self-performs concrete work, carpentry, set steel. I think Henkel is probably a very similar company.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing, John, is there are opportunities regardless of educational background to join the team at Story, whether you're coming straight out of high school, whether you have a 2-year degree, whether you have a 4-year degree, there's opportunities. And would you say that opportunities to move up as well?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
I'd say it's probably hard to become the president if you don't have a college degree, but sure. I'm not saying that it's not possible.
So what makes someone move up? I mean, if it's not education, what do you see in employees that helps them move on through their career? What skills, what performance standards?
So kind of not really trying to toot my own horn here, but kind of the key role at Story is the superintendent. And you can get there 2 different ways. You can go to college and be a project engineer and get a lot of experience that way, to then move on to leading the process on the job site of building the school or all the different things that we do. If you start right out of high school and you're a laborer and then you move up, if you're motivated and have your act together, and then you can become a foreman, and if you're a really good foreman, you can be a superintendent. Then kind of the natural progression from there is project manager. Around the time I started, they decided that all project managers needed to have been a superintendent first. Okay. And it's a lot easier to know what's going on outside when you've been there and done that. So that's the reasoning behind that. We don't have a whole lot of project managers that started in the field, because generally people that are in the field prefer to work in the field. There's a lot of freedom that goes along with that. It's a much smaller group. There's no office politics. Not saying that there's a lot of office politics, but there's always some.
Sure.
If you get an office more than 4 people. So there's a lot of freedom to working on a job site.
Andy, how about you at Henkel? Could you kind of do the same thing? What job opportunities at varying education levels?
Yeah, I would say ours is very comparable to Story Construction's. If you're going to look towards the office, definitely construction engineering degree or a construction management degree would be preferred. And once you get into that role, you'd be a project engineer. And then we actually separate estimating from project management. So after about a couple years, you'll get a feel for which route that person prefers to take as a career-wise standpoint. And then that's how you'd work your way up, either estimating solely 100% of the time or running projects, multiple projects 100% of the time. And then from the field, very comparable. So we normally, if you were coming straight out of high school with, no experience, but really want to get into the field and work your way up, you would start as a laborer. After proving yourself after a year or so, or even longer than that, then it would be, the next level would be a skilled laborer. And then after the skilled laborer is where you get into more carpentry. So a lot of finish, trim work, some rough framing as well. We self-perform concrete, carpentry, steel erection, precast. So very comparable. But after that, once you've been here, so we have a couple people that have been at Henkel for 3-4 years that are at that foreman level position. So they're running, you know, a crew of 4 people on a job. I'm not saying that they run the whole job there themselves, but they run the manpower. And then after the foreman position, we have a project foreman, which would be, hey, you've proven yourself as a foreman for this amount of time. We think that you would be able to run a project under $1 million. So that would be almost like an assistant superintendent or a mini superintendent. Like you're not doing a $30 million job, but you're able to, you know, do $1 million or under. And then after that, then they'd move up to that superintendent role where they're working on hospitals and warehousing and schools and stuff like that.
What is your opinion on students who are struggling right after high school to know, should I go get like a 2-year degree or enter the workforce because I'm curious about construction, but you know, do I go get a job and be a laborer, or do I go get the degree and try to work at the same time? What's your opinion on that? Because it seems like construction has some different pathways in order to get into the construction field. And I'm always curious, you know, if I were a student, how do I choose what's the best route to take?
So, I mean, I'm probably I would say I don't use my major I went to school for. So there's probably a high percentage of people that don't use the degree that they're still paying student debts on. So I would recommend strongly just trying to dive right into the construction industry. If you're looking at that being a possibility, we also partner with NIAC and other community colleges to help train people as well. So you'd still be getting that college exposure. But truly, if it's something that you want to explore, it wouldn't hurt, worst comes to worst, pushing off school for a year and saying, hey, it either did or didn't really spark your interest. We have a lot of people that started out with us after 2 years of college at MAC or NIAC that were making a lot more money than, you know, people were when I graduated college back in the day. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely room to grow, and you'd be working more than 40 hours a week. So I know if I was young and right out of high school, I'd love to get that chance to have consistent overtime pay as well.
Great. Thank you for that. I just am always curious because this pathway seems like one that, again, there's multiple ways to get into the industry. And I'm not sure there's a right one. But when advising students, sometimes they like to hear which pathway, you know, should I take? So what do you love most about your job? And then on the flip side, what is the most challenging thing about your job?
I would say the most fun part of my job is always communicating with people. I always stop out at job sites, make sure all of our, you know, teams are doing well and there's no issues or no complaints. I love bringing new people on to Henkel. So I do help with some of the hiring and recruiting aspects of it. It's always nice to give somebody the chance to better their career and, you know, give them a shot to prove themselves, which is at the end of the day, very rewarding. The biggest challenge I would say is actually bringing awareness to the construction industry and, you know, letting parents know that this is an acceptable path that their kids could take. I mean, it might have not been the same stigma back in the 80s or 90s, but I mean, construction's the most consistent industry we've had, especially this year. We've kept everyone busy. There's been no layoffs, and I know a lot of other industries have taken a hit to everything that's going on.
How about you, John? What would you say is the thing that you love most about your job?
I think we might have lost him. He might be back.
No.
I can always help.
Okay.
You might have.
We'll just keep on rolling here. Yeah, because I don't see him in my waiting room either. All right, we've kind of touched on some of this already, Andy, but other advice that you have for students who are interested in this field? I mean, you mentioned the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
You enjoy it, you know, it's good pay. What else do you have for students who are exploring?
I mean, we're in Ames, we're in Story County. If any kids want to talk or visit or go on job site tours, give me or John a call. I mean, that's what we try to do, is get more exposure in the industry. So if anyone has any questions or wants any follow-ups, definitely feel free to reach out.
Okay, fantastic. Welcome back, John. I think we lost you there for a moment.
Yeah, our internet stopped for a break or something.
No problem. The only question I think you missed was what's the thing that you love most about your job? And then on the flip side, what's something that's a challenge about your job?
I'm glad I wrote this down so I can remember. What I love is the freedom, the ever-changing locations and projects and teams, and working in the fresh air. And for several years, I've had a little bit of control over control over my schedule. So when the weather's really nice, I try to make more use of going outside. And when the weather is really not nice, I try to take advantage of my controlled environments that I work in sometimes. I love that this job is all about getting stuff done and then seeing the results. You can see the results at the end of each day, at the end of each project. I still point at stuff that I built summers in college that are going to be there for probably longer than I'm alive. They're hard to see, some box culverts under the road, but
and how about what's challenging?
What's hard is dealing with difficult people who are unwilling or incapable of communication. And I'm glad to say that seems to be getting better every year.
Good.
Or less bad.
I feel like I hear that a lot, that communication is one of those soft skills or 21st century skills that employers see all the time that is lacking. Any comments around that or advice to young people?
I think I've heard that somewhere around 90% of communication is nonverbal. So you may have seen people comment on Twitter or Facebook that they want a sarcasm font. But it's live conversations matter. And if you can do it in person, that's great. If you can do it over the phone because you can't drive 4 hours to do it, calling is okay. One of the upsides to COVID is that we're all getting much better at video chatting. And that's become much more available and common. So that's a way to have a direct interaction from miles and miles apart.
Yeah, I think it's just really important for young people to hear from people in the field and professionals that what their teachers say as far as learning how to communicate well, whether it's the spoken word or the written word, it's an important skill. Employers look for it all the time. It can set you apart. It can move you up. It can hold you back. So I hear that a lot from people in the workplace. So thank you for bringing that up.
Proofread your stuff.
Yeah, spelling matters, right?
Choosing the right word matters.
Mm-hmm.
I received a letter of registration from somebody who was trying to quit.
Registration.
I assume they meant letter of resignation, but they couldn't be bothered to reread their 2 sentences.
Right. Interesting. Any advice that you have, John, for young people who are interested in getting into construction?
I've got a few. Pay attention to the details. The details will make or break you. For those of you who might be unpopular in school because you're a know-it-all, that's helpful in this industry to know as much as you can about as much as you can. I've got to know about digging ditches for footings and hanging cabinets and talking to the guy that's in charge of the horticulture department at Iowa State, and the guy that moved here from Mexico that has maybe a 6th grade education. Know as much as you can about as much as you can. Have a pioneer spirit. And to me, that means have the desire to be self-reliant. You think about the pioneers that came and settled Iowa, just they were it. They had to rely on themselves. And that's a wonderful thing, to be self-reliant. Learn some Spanish. That is, we all know it's important, but it's probably more important than any of us really wants it to be. And just like if you think about talking to somebody who doesn't speak English as their first language, and they're gonna fail that English test by your English teacher, but they can get their point across. And so if you can just understand people and be understood, that's very helpful. And last, don't be unwilling or incapable. Be willing and able. I'm not saying be willing to do crazy stuff that is dangerous or illegal, but that kind of goes back with know as much as you can about as much as you can. Be willing to do the hard stuff that will pay off a lot in the end.
Great, thank
That's
you.
enough.
Andy, anything to add on that? I know I asked you the same question already, but anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think I covered pretty much a lot, but that was extra information that was good, John, for sure. Just know as much as you can and be willing to know and challenge yourself every day, for sure.
Very good. Okay, one last question and then we'll wrap up. What is the job outlook for the construction field?
I'd say it's good. Is it going to be maybe not great in the near future? Probably. But we're always going to need buildings. And when the economy is going great and people have money to spend on buying our services, then you're building new or replacing stuff. When things aren't going well, then things get remodeled or fixed up and maintained. You can't outsource us to a foreign country, and we can't be entirely replaced by robots, at least not in the very near future. Here's a homework assignment for YouTube. Search Ditch Digger's poem. It's about 4 minutes long, and it gives me chills every time I watch it.
Ditch Digger's poem.
Yes.
Okay.
The AGC version I know is safe. I don't think there's any unsafe ones out there, but.
Okay, I'll have to do that. Hopefully students watching will do that as well. Anything to add there, Andy? The job outlook?
Spot on. Everything is always continuously adding on to pre-existing buildings or building new. And, you know, every building has that span where 20, 30 years down the road, they're going to need to revisit their plans and bring talent into their buildings as well. So with companies being more competitive for manpower and finding good employees, that's opened up the gates to a lot of really cool tenant improvement projects that we've been a part of, and restoration and stuff like that. So yeah, always have job postings out there looking for good people, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, one last question, just because I'm curious. What's the project that you've had the most fun working on in your career? Is there one that sticks out?
My most recent really fun project was, and I'd rather that the Duratio event didn't happen, but it did happen. And I was glad that I was working from home that day. So I was in the basement with my wife and kids, helping them or reducing their stress. But I got a call that afternoon. I had no power at my house. Got a call from my project manager, who went to Woodward, to one of the one of the state sites that we take care of. And they had 4 buildings lose or have major roof losses. So the derecho happened at 11 a.m. He called me at like 3 p.m. Said, I need you to be in Woodward at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, got there at 9 a.m. He had a roofing contractor there before I was there, project manager looking at stuff. Their guys showed up at 11:30, and they had one building, the roof, a temporary roof, rolled rubber is what it was, EPDM. It was watertight by 7:30 p.m. that day. And then I spent 3 weeks cleaning up a metal roof that they'd put on top of an old, most people will call it a flat roof, but they thought it looked really cool, so they built a sloped roof with red metal, and a bunch of it blew off and into the field, or not field, the yard and parking lot. And it was, what can I do today? What can we do to make this better? And it was loads of fun. Cleaning up the paperwork afterward, not as much fun, but it was go get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. And you made a difference.
Yep, made a difference.
Awesome. How about you, Andy? Is there a project that sticks out in your mind?
So for me, being with Henkel for about 2 years, I would say the biggest project that I've enjoyed personally being on, and I fly a lot of drone and do a lot of marketing for Henkel as well. So I love going out to Greene County, Jefferson, Iowa, right there on 30, a new high school that we've been building from the ground up. It's really cool to see just empty lot be converted into a huge school and academy center for Iowa Central Community College as well.
Very neat. Something that will be there for a long time. They'll be utilized by a lot of people. Great. Well, do you guys have anything else to add? Okay.
I could talk all day, but
yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story, sharing your experiences, and some advice for young people. It's great to learn a little bit more about the construction industry and get some insights. So thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.